In this very first lesson, we're going to take a look at how we can use the file system to create the routes for our application. And we'll see how Nuxt automatically generates those routes from our file. First, we'll create the pages folder that all of our pages will live in. And then inside of that, we'll create an index.view component, which will be our root page. And we'll just throw in something really simple so that we can get started. Then we'll start our dev server. And we'll refresh the page here. Great. The very first step, we've got something rendered to a page, although it's not very interesting yet. But don't worry, we'll get there. If I make a change to this code and then save it, we'll see that Nuxt automatically reloads our page. This is called hot module reloading, or HMR for short. Anytime we make a change to one of the files in our app, Nuxt will automatically reload the dev server. However, if you make a change to the name of a file or add in new files or delete them, you'll sometimes have to restart the dev server entirely so that it will pick up those new files. This hot module reloading makes development really easy because we don't have to keep going back and restarting our server. We can see the changes we're making as we make them. Next, we'll create a page where we'll show the course itself. To view this page, we can go to /course. Nuxt automatically generated this /course route for us and then matches it to the course.view component we just created. Nuxt will look at the file structure of our pages directory and then use that to automatically generate our app routes for us. A route matches the URL to a specific component in our app. If we open up the DevTools, we can see all of the routes in our app. Here we can see the index route that maps to the index.view component that we created, as well as the /course route, which matches to the course.view component. Nuxt uses viewRouter internally, and that's where all of these routes are coming from. Nuxt allows us full access to this viewRouter if we need more control, but we won't be going into that in this course. In most cases, we can rely on Nuxt's file-based routing system to generate what we need, and we don't need to worry too much about how viewRouter is being used under the hood. In every single Vue app, the component that starts it all is app.view. Right now, we have a simplified one, and all it does is render our Nuxt page inside of a Nuxt layout component. This Nuxt page component is what renders the component that's matched based on the route that we are at. So when we go to the /course route, the router matches that to the course.view component, which gets rendered through this Nuxt page component here. If we look at our components in the DevTools, we can see how this works. We have our Nuxt page, which renders the router view from view router. Then we have a transition component, another transition component, and then finally, it renders out the course component that we have created. So that's the basics of how file-based routing works in Nuxt. In the next lesson, we'll take a look at how we can use nested routes to create more complex hierarchies and more powerful web applications. But before we get there, we're going to flesh out our course page just a little bit. I have some code here that I'm just going to paste in. We're using Tailwind classes along with the Tailwind typography plugin just to get some nicer styling out of the box. So there we go. We've got the basics of our app fleshed out. Now we can move on to the next lesson.